Good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started. People may trickle in if they're still trying to find parking, but welcome. I can't believe to our final 12th grade networking meeting. Unbelievable. But thank you for coming, and today we are going to be talking about the transition to college, which is always a good thing to start to think about a couple of months before we send them off. So we have Jerry Gertzen here today, who has lots of knowledge to share with us about some of the more paperwork and legal side of things that we don't think about. And so I think there's a lot of really great information that we will get from him. He's here with us from Lampert, Toohey, and Rucci in town. And we also had planned to have Greg Sloan, the Teen Talk counselor from school, but he's had a last-minute emergency come up. So I think he has a lot of great information to share about this transition period as well. And if you're interested in learning about what he has to say, you can go on to the PFA website and listen to his talk from last year to get some advice about the more emotional side of things. And yeah,
Okay.
so we'll pass it over.
I'm assuming this is on. You can hear me? Everybody's okay? All right. Since Greg's not here today, I think maybe I'll just open it up and talk about a few of my personal experiences. I'm a parent of two girls who are also now in college. So I've just been through what you just went through. And of course, congratulations on getting through the fun times that you, I'm sure, all had with the application processes and all that. Again, I'm an attorney, 30 years of practice, 16 years running the trust and estates practice at Lampert, Toohey, and Rucci here in town, and the full 30 in Manhattan. So bounce back and forth between the two offices, been doing this for a while. I'm going to open it up, I think, with the FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. All right, and I'm just going to read a little bit from it. It's a broad statute and law. It gives parents and students certain rights with respect to records, school records, okay? I pulled this off of my daughter. One of my daughters is in college, like I said, she's at Villanova, and I pulled this just off of their website. So Villanova, I'm just gonna read some of this, in accordance with this FERPA rule, adopted certain student record policies to address following issues. Some of this deals with the disclosure of directory information, confidentiality of identifiable information, and the one thing that we focus on at the office is getting the parents to be able to access academic records, okay? Without their consent, the children's consent, you cannot do that. So I would recommend working with your kids when they get to school to have them give you access to those things sooner rather than later, okay? I'll get back into that in a sec. Let me start too with this issue with respect to HIPAA, okay? HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and it protects the privacy of medical records and information. Doctors, medical facilities are not permitted to disclose any information about patients without their permission. Okay. So generally, parents will be able to obtain medical information about a minor child, but once that child turns 18, access to the medical information is protected. So what we do at the office is we have the children come in and sign certain documents. One is a healthcare proxy. Okay, the first set that we deal with here on the healthcare is an agency form. That's where the children can appoint a parent, usually, as the agent for them to make medical decisions. I'll read a little bit from the statute. It says here, if my attending physician determines that I'm unable to understand and appreciate the nature and consequences of healthcare decisions and unable to reach and communicate an informed decision with regard to treatment, my healthcare agent is authorized to make any and all healthcare decisions for me, including 1, the decision to accept or refuse any medical treatment, 2, the decisions to provide or withhold life support systems. And the statute actually says that even though the children sign these forms, you cannot perform any sort of psychosurgery or shock therapy, which is just in the statute. I guess there was an issue with that at some point. I'll go on here. the healthcare agent also can access protected medical information. And I've run into a bit of an issue with some of the local doctors. I'm assuming most of the kids are in pediatric care at this point, right? Even though the statute says that the parents can access medical records with this form, sometimes they don't like to give it. They like to use their own forms. So I would just double check perhaps even after you sign these agency forms with your provider, just to make sure that they don't have a form that you would need in order for them to divulge health records. One of the things, too, in connection with this that I've noticed is that you do use these more than you think. I've had a number of cases where the students will come and sign these. They're off to college, and within a year, we're using them. And the one, if I had to pick the most popular one, it's they drank too much, or they ingest something that they shouldn't have ingested, and now they're having a problem at a hospital or something like this. They're out cold. That's the most popular one I hear. Now, having 2 kids in college, they give me the feedback, yes, a lot of the kids get carted off to emergency rooms because they overdo it, okay? So the healthcare agency form, usually what we do is we have one appointee who is either usually mother or father, and a backup. What they don't like, and this is actually a New York rule now, what they don't like is to have 2 appointees act at the same time, because what was happening was the 2 appointees, when they're acting as co-agents, will argue sometimes, and it puts the doctors in a difficult position. And so it would be better just to name one person as the healthcare agent with a successor backup. Usually it's a mother, father, vice versa, okay? The next part of the healthcare set of documents is related to, this is the grim stuff. This is a living will. This is a pull the plug doc. Most of the kids that come see me have never really thought this through. And when they come in, they haven't read the documents, and we're talking about it for the first time, and I get the deer in the headlight, kind of look from the students saying, oh, wow, I never really thought about this before. But basically what it says here, and this is really from the statute, you're terminal, you're in a terminal condition, you're permanently unconscious, you're in a coma, you're in a persistent vegetative state, you're irreversible, right? And then they give a list of things that you don't want them to do in order to bring you back into the comatose state, right? One of them is a CPR, the next is artificial respiration, the next is artificial means of providing nutrition and hydration. I'd say about half of the students that come in will cross this out, and they're just not ready for it, okay? The other half, they sit there, they think it through, and they say, okay, we'll sign this, so we're pulling the plug under that scenario, all right? So what you're doing here by using this living will, which is separate from the healthcare agency form, is that you are expressing your intention to not live this way. That's you telling the world, I don't want to live this way. And then your healthcare agent then has the power to work with your doctors to help make certain medical decisions connected to that issue, okay? Just going on here, there's also an organ donation part of this. We try to keep it consistent with the driver's license. And then we have a designation of a conservator. A conservator in Connecticut is a person who's appointed to supervise the personal affairs of someone that just can't manage their own affairs. It's a good way to just have someone in that position to act versus having to go to court to get someone to do it, which is a court proceeding and an expense and a hassle. So just to go over this one last time, we have the healthcare agency form, okay, where you're going to be naming, the child will be naming one parent, usually with a backup. We have the living will, which is the pull the plug document. And then we've got the organ donation and the appointment of a conservator. Okay. Not often. Once in a while, I have students come in with assets. May want to contemplate at least a will for them, but most don't usually when they come see me. It's something to consider for them if they do have their own assets. One of the things that I have noticed too is that when they do come see us, it's the first time really they've ever been to a lawyer's office, and we kind of talk them through the documents and how it works. And I think it's another one of those steps forward for them where they're actually, have their own lawyer now, which is kind of like an awakening, I think, in a sense for some of the kids that come see us. I do tell them now, having two children in school, that I kind of use the same rule that you'll hear the insurance companies and for automobile insurance talk about, or they teach you this with driver's ed. That if you do get into trouble, and we do talk about this when they come in, try not to admit anything. Never admit that you did anything wrong. If you're pressured by any sort of law enforcement, security, whatever, campus cops, try not to admit too much. It's just our nature, as lawyers. We try not to get the clients to admit it. Admissions are admissible in court as evidence, and it can be used against you. So we kind of give them that little speech, because kids get swept up in trouble sometimes in colleges. It does happen. We try to get them to understand that they don't have to talk if they don't want to, and if it really gets to the point where they feel like they're being pressured, tell whoever it is that's trying to get information from you, you have a lawyer, right? And it usually stops the questioning. I know the chances of it happening are small, but you do read about college incidents and trouble every now and then. Okay, so let me get back into the next set here. So just touching upon the FERPA once more, I think is, again, since Greg's not here, and I think last year he talked about this a little bit. It's one of those things that I would have your child get right on it as soon as they get there, because what happens is they get to the schools, and now they have a sense of independence, and they know that the parents don't have immediate access to what you have now through the Power School, right, where we're all obsessively checking the quizzes and everything every day. And as a result of that, you'll see, I've noticed anyway with my two, you'll see procrastination. They're like, well, the parents aren't here, they're 400 miles away, I'm not really that interested in giving them access to everything that's going on. But the parent portals are really important for a number of things. First, again, the academic records, all right? You have access to their academic records, which, is important. I mean, there's another school of thought here, and I have talked to other parents about this, where, well, maybe it's time to give the children their independence and not have us look over everything that they do, We're paying the bills. I mean, this is the way I look at it. We're paying the bills, and I think it's important, especially maybe in the first year or so, just to see who's teaching them, who are the professors. Like my youngest, it was actually this morning that she finally broke down and gave us access to the parent portal, and this is first year. And so I was able to get in there this morning, see the academic records, see who was teaching her. The other thing that you're going to see in there in the parent portal in most colleges is information with respect to your financial aid packaging and the timing of all of that. I don't know if you've been through that yet, but it's a hassle. There's components of that the children have to participate in order for you to get it done. There are different websites that kind of interlock with each other that are kind of difficult to navigate. There are timing mechanisms, like May 1st is now a deadline, and I wouldn't have known that unless, I got an email from Villanova, where my other daughter is, that was the date. Because I did not get into the parent portal, my other child's at Lehigh, until just this morning. So I pressed her and said, look, we have to get in there now, at least to get the information with respect to how the applications are working for the financial aid. You'll see, what else will you see in the parent portals? You'll see, again, the bios of the professors usually. You're going to see the due dates of the financial aid packaging. You're going to see academic records. You're going to see whether or not there are any holds on any accounts. So it's really important to get in there, I think. The other thing that can happen here when you get into the parent portal is that your children can limit what you can see. They have a choice of what information to give you. And I don't know exactly the breadth of what is available there, because I'm only seeing what they're allowing me to see, and I really haven't gotten into it far enough to know like what other options could be out there on the parent portal side of things. But again, you know, having just gone through this twice now, I think it's important to jump on it quickly and to get them to sign you into the parent portal like immediately as soon as they get to school. If they can do it when they're home, going through the process now of managing, you know, the website that the colleges have for them to enter school and get going, do it now, okay? Let's see. I mean, if your student's an athlete, under the FERPA rules, you know, that they can tell, you know, the public how tall they are, how much they weigh, things like this. Let's see. I'm just going to read a little bit from some of the statute here. They can give their full name, identification, address, phone number. They can post a photo. This is all part of like putting information in their directories, you know. They can, honors and awards can be publicly disclosed. Personally identifiable information includes, this is not what they're allowed to do, right? They cannot give any information with regard to disciplinary records, financial aid records, things like this, letters of recommendation, medical records, all that's protected, of course, okay? Okay, so FERPA. FERPA, again, is a monstrous statute, but the part that's really relevant to us here and to you, I think, is that you cannot access anything about what's going on in your college unless the child allows you to, which is kind of a shock, I think, to a lot of us that are paying the bills, but that's just the way it is. And they're pretty strict about it. And they are, again, speaking of strict, doctors. Once the child hits 18, they will not talk to you. You know, they shouldn't anyway. And I've had that issue a number of times where the parents are trying to reach down and they just cannot get any information about what's going on with their child who might be in a hospital or whatever. I've had it. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, one of the other documents that most parents and children contemplate signing before a child heads off is a power of attorney. And power of attorney is related to more financial things, all right? We use a statutory power with some manuscripted editions that we include on our own. The statutory power, again, a power of attorney is a document where you are giving someone else the ability to conduct certain, we'll call them financial transactions on your behalf. It's a powerful document. I like having the power effective immediately, which means that it is a powerful document that's active as soon as it's signed. And the reason I like doing it this way is because if you don't do it that way and you use what's called a springing power, which springs into existence and into effect upon the occurrence of a certain event, like a disability, for example, what you run into with those is, okay, has that threshold been crossed between, you know, you being competent versus not? And if you take a springing power to Bank of America or wherever, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, is the principal okay? Are they alive and well? I'm seeing here this is a springing power that only takes effect upon a disability or a physical disability. And that becomes almost a liability issue for a lot of the institutions that are using these, that you deliver these to. And so I don't like using them because then you get into that question. Even if you have a letter from a doctor saying, yes, the principal is incapacitated or whatever, still you run into legal issues with that on the institution side. They're worried about giving away money and information when they're not 100% sure the principal isn't able to do it themselves. So we do not use the springing powers. The trick with the powers is to appoint somebody that you trust, and that's really the whole ball game. And and what we do is we hold the originals for most clients, 95% of them, in our safes at the office here in New Canaan, and I don't release them until I hear from the principal. and they say, okay, I've been in that car crash or whatever, I want my wife or whoever it is, or here it would be like my parent, to go to the bank for me and do some financial transactions. So sorts of things that are conveyed, the powers that are conveyed in a power would be real estate, insurance, banking, chattel, estates, things like this that are typically included in the power, that convey the power to the donee of the power when it's signed. The other components to what we manuscript in connect more to Medicaid planning issues. There we're dealing with if a child needs to qualify at some point, God forbid, for disability or Medicaid, those powers are in there as well. So what we do tell the children when they come in is that, yes, they're signing these things, but they can also revoke them. They're adults, they can change things if they want. They don't have to tell their parents that they're doing it even, but they are adults now, so the documents are revocable. Even when we're dealing with an active, let's say, healthcare agency. You have a healthcare agency form, you take it to, your child's having difficulty with a physical issue in school. You send the power, the agency down, the medical power, down to the nurse's office. The child still has the ability to say, no, don't talk to my parents about this. Like, I just don't want them to know what's happening. They still can turn off the spigot. And so they're adults, they can still not have that power be conveyed if they don't want to. Like an example might be, if they're having like therapy or something like this, right? You're called down to the therapist and the child says, wait, my parents are calling to see how my therapy sessions are going. They might not be comfortable with that, so they would turn off the spigot and turn off the power at that point. So even though we have, even though we have these abilities here, the child still has control over, ultimate control over whether or not they're used in any particular instance. Let's see, so I'm just going to get into, again, so the Health and Portability Act. Again, the statute here, and this is again back to the question of whether or not your local, your doctors, your local doctors here will accept it. The statute does call for them to turn over to the agent protected healthcare information. There's no HIPAA. There's no HIPAA form that goes along with this, really, but it's in the statute. The statute says it, and it's in the agency form that says, look, someone comes in with this agency form, you are obligated, if they want, the information to turn it over. This is the medical information now. So again, I have run into the issue where you might just want to double check to make sure that there's no other form that your local office has that they want your child to sign before they head off. Let's see here. I get the question, okay, well, my child's being taken away, they had a rough night, they're being taken away, EMS has got them, they're out cold, how are they gonna know that I am their agent and I can help, manage some of the medical issues? What we tell clients, most people are using iPhones today, I don't know how it works on a Samsung, but if you have your iPhone and you press the two buttons, most of you probably already know this, up top, there's a medical ID slider here. And when you slide that over, that will pull up your contact information for your agent, okay? This is what you would do. It tells you who the emergency contacts are with their phone numbers. You can put drug information in here or whatever. The children should have that because that's what the EMS use if they're out cold and nobody knows who they are. They're going to slide this over. They're going to find the phone and try to find out who they are and who their agents are, all right? What we also recommend is when the forms are done, when the forms are done, I would recommend scanning them into your phones and just have them on your person, just PDF and take a screenshot of them or whatever so you've got them in case you need to just get them over to a hospital or a doctor quickly. Yeah, so what you want to do is you have an iPhone? Yeah. You press the two buttons up here at the top, okay? No, yeah, if you You're gonna press, even if the phone is locked, right? You're gonna press the two buttons up top. You're gonna see a screen like that. You should have it done too. Yeah, you hold the two top. You got it? You slide over and I have clients that come in and that don't know about this and had accidentally named their hairdresser or their landscaper, as their medical emergency contact. So just make sure that that's up to date. And that's what the EMS, workers use to figure out who they are and who their contact person is on the healthcare. I get one of the things that I just like mentioning the tracking. You want to talk safety for a second. I mean, just out of curiosity, I did this little survey last year. How many still track their kids on their phones? Okay. So it's about a little less than half. Okay. Are you going to continue? Let's show of hands to continue and track in college too. You still track? My kids track me. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a boring guy, I guess. I don't really care, but they track me too. But I'm still tracking. You get to that point, and I'm starting to move into parenting a little bit here, where these are important documents certainly to have for anyone, but you start to get to the point, when independence becomes an issue for the children, and at what point do we just let it go? I'm not going to track you anymore. I don't really need to check, your academic records anymore. I mean, at some point that day may come. I'm not quite there yet, but it will come at some point. Sure.
My son won't be 18 when he leaves for school.
Yeah.
Do we do these forms now?
Yeah, no, what we do is we'll get them together, and then when they come back for a break or whatever, we'll have them signed then. That's how we do it, yeah. Because, we do have that on occasion where, we have to be 18 in order to sign the forms, all right? Let me think. So I'm just going to go through just quickly again. I'm trying to see what Greg I'm trying to think of what he was talking about last year. I mean, I think, mental health has become a big issue, of course. And I know that I think a lot of the, I was reading this in the Times not that long ago, I think, a lot of the care that's being given to children nowadays is connected to mental health, therapy or whatever. And that's something that, I think the schools are pretty good at least the two that my two are at. They kind of monitor the kids, and they do really have good infirmaries, and the nurses are on top of things, and they're pretty good about all that sort of thing. But just keep an eye on that too, I would say, just as a parent. Stress levels go up, it seems, the kids are really working hard. One of the things coming out of New Canaan that I've noticed for my two anyway is that they prepare them so well here that academically, I do feel that they do have advantages having come from this school versus like some of their classmates, for example. So that does help reduce some of the stressors that are in play for them. I'm just going to go through here to see if there's anything else that's interesting. Just a monstrous FERPA statute. I mean, it's really, not really. I mean, we're dealing here with extreme things like, the federal authorities can maybe access some of this if there's a crime, that sort of thing, but So what the children will do when they come in to see me is we're going to have a one-page form for them. It's a FERPA waiver, and we connect it really only to the academic records. Everything else in here is dealt with through the school's websites. Again, it's a lengthy statute. And a lot of it's just not going to be relevant for a lot of students. But so what we do is we have them sign the FERPA waiver that allows the parents to access the academic records, really. And again, it's part of the process when your children are heading out. They may encounter that form online, maybe, and they can just execute it then online. What they want to know is the child a tax dependent, and for everyone it's going to be a yes, probably, right? They're going to, again, name the two parents as the appointees to access the records. Let's see. get back to anything connected to the healthcare. I don't think so. I think, just taking a look here. You know, the questions that the kids ask me mostly when they come in to see me are connected to the living will. You know, the pull the plug document. They just haven't contemplated it. They're okay with naming the parents as the agents and all of that. Most of them want to do it. But it's usually the living will they haven't contemplated. And it's really where I get the most questions, I'd say. They're okay with the FERPA. They're okay with the disclosures. I do get some pushback on the power of attorney related to finances. You know, they want to know how long does this go for, you know, this sort of thing, because it's their money. And the answer is it goes forever until they revoke it. Triggering event is you get married, they'll tell them that, you know, usually you will change that from your parents to your spouse or someone else, you know, that would be like a triggering event for them. So I get that question. There's a little bit of blowback on the powers. That's something that they have to sit there and they look at it and they're like, wow, you know, it's just pretty intense. And they want to know usually how long it goes on for. What else? You can still set up custodial accounts for the children if you want. Connecticut works under what's called the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, which allows parents to set up custodial accounts for the children and maintain a custodianship until the child hits 21. So that you can still do. Once the child hits 21, the money is theirs. So if you're going to set up an account for them to go to college, they have their own checking account, you're going to fund it or whatever, you can still maintain a custodial relationship with the account until the child hits 21 under that act. I'm just thinking if there's anything else connected to what we've just been through with the two here. I don't think so. I mean, you know, taking it outside of this area a little bit, you know, the roommate issue is a source of stress sometimes for the kids, you know, picking roommates. They try to connect with kids through social media to do that nowadays. You know, sometimes it works, I guess, sometimes it doesn't. Let's think, and I think that's about it. I think, so we've covered the 4 components of the healthcare document. We've touched upon how the power works. We just reviewed the FERPA and how that's important for you to jump on pretty soon, if you can. And I think what I'm going to do is just open it up to some questions, and I'm going to start to think. Yes?
So a power of attorney doesn't allow you to do any medical things?
No, separate. The power of attorney, the statutory power, is just for finances, we'll call it, right? So it specifically says it's not for medical issues. So the two documents work together. The healthcare agency form covers the medical appointment together with the conservatorship appointment and the living will. Those are separate, right? So the power only covers finances, right? And again, a lot of it might not be relevant since the children might not have, you know, any significant financial interest right now. But I think it's good for them to see it, to understand that it's there, to know how it works. It's just one of those steps forward in life that I think is important for kids, you know. You know, I think a lot of times they come in too, and they're also shocked that, you know, you can't access their medical records anymore. More often than not, they don't understand that that's how it works. So they're kind of surprised too. So we're not the only ones that are shocked by it. But yeah, so any other questions now? Questions? Yes.
You've mentioned the number of times when the kids come to see you.
Mhm.
Do parents typically come to those meetings as well?
It's a good question. I always make it clear to the student that they are my client, right? And if I...
Pay the bills.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? That's a really good question. And I'll say it's okay, we're all here together talking these things through, usually yes, you know. And I have to assess too whether or not I may have a conflict with what a parent might want versus a child. And if I sense that, I have to separate us and I have to ask the parent to go outside and talk to the child directly about it. That really doesn't happen much because the parent and the child usually are on the same team with respect to what needs to be done and what they want, you know. But that's a good question, and usually the parents come. I'll give it 2/3 of the parents show up with the children to sign these, I'd say. But they don't have to be there. There's nothing for the parent to sign in order to make these effective. If a parent wants to use a power of attorney, there is something called a full force and effect affidavit that goes along with the power that would need to be signed before the power is used. But I don't like signing that until the power is going to be used, because if they sign what's called a full force and effect, which is saying that the power is in full force and effect, and they don't use it for 5 years, it gets stale. And so there's nothing for the parent to sign when they come see me, just because of that reason. So I like to wait until I actually use the power before I have the parents come in to sign their agent certification on the power and the full force and effect affidavit. Questions? What else do you have? Anything else? Anybody? Yes?
So I understand the time limit on some of the things that you've talked about. Is there anything that does not expire for the 4 years until they turn?
Well,
one?
the only document that expires is the FERPA certification, because what we'll do is we'll put in there, we'll figure out when their graduation date is. So we'll make the FERPA effective from the year they enter to, we'll add 4 years usually in the FERPA waiver. All the other documents do not expire. They're in effect for as long as the child wants them to be in effect for, until they're revoked.
They do that through their school.
They can do it through the school, yeah. I mean, I do have them sign it anyway, just, it's a one-pager, because the component that we're doing really is just connected only to the release of academic records. Whereas the FERPA statute, I'm looking at Villanova's here now, it goes on for like 9 pages, you know. And a lot of that might not be that interesting or relevant to the children, and they just might blow it off or whatever, I don't know, because it's just a lot, you know. So what we'll do is, and I've used it before, where I just used the one-pager just to get the academic records opened up and cleared. And the schools will respect what we've done, because I have used them before. You know, where the child hasn't done it, they didn't go through the process of figuring out what form to fill out online because it's just too much for them or whatever. And so the college will accept what we've done on the waiver. So anything else? I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I can impart here, having now just starting myself. Is everybody done? Is the whole process of school acceptance, is it not quite yet? It's still going on? It's still going on. So what is it, regular decision now? Is that the timing of this? Yeah. Okay. For RD decisions to come in? Okay, all right. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else that I can tell you. Yes?
So if students traveling overseas,
Yeah.
we are running into issues with all the signed papers in.
What I recommend, we have a number of clients, students who do study abroad. And so what I recommend is having a set here done in this jurisdiction, having everything set up, and then having them contact local council, wherever it is they're going, to do the same thing out there, because the forms might be different, they might not understand them, they might not translate them properly or whatever. So it can't hurt to have 2 sets that are identical with respect to the appointments, right? But if you're going to, Edinburgh or something like that, I would have somebody out there, take a look at it too, and maybe have a second set done out there. But clients of mine whose children do go overseas will send our set to the registrar or whoever it is overseas, so they've got it. But it's a good question, and it can't hurt to have 2 sets of documents if that's going to be happening. A lot of children nowadays, most I'd say, do semesters abroad. Some right out of the gate I've seen where they're just going right out, before they even step foot on campus. They're going to Rome or wherever it is, So there again, I would definitely have them come in, finish this up with us, or you can, your lawyer, and then have a second set done in the foreign country. Was there another question? Yes.
I don't know if it's outside the scope of this conversation, but when you were talking about the custodial accounts, it got me thinking about their credit and like when does the credit score start? When do they start earning their credit score?
I'm not an expert in credit scores on that. I do know that some parents set up, they have credit cards for their kids, to help them establish credit. Which, I think is one way you can do it. With respect to the custodial accounts would be, I'm just thinking the custodial account on the SSN there, it's just really mostly just, those are just like checking accounts. I don't think that really gonna affect a credit score if you just open up a $10,000 checking account for a child that's off to college, for example. It's an asset, but I don't really think that's gonna affect a credit score. I think what they're more interested in is whether or not there's consistent payments being made on credit, on debt, and that's being done in a timely way. That's more of the credit issue, I would say. You do run into, that's an issue, whether the kids are using an additional card under your account or whether they have their own, at this point. Might want to check with the banker on that. Pardon, just allergies, man, woof. And so, any other questions? Anything else? Okay. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else. What I'll do is I'll just, if you want us to help you, I'd be more than happy to do it. What we do is we just reduce our fees down for the students. We knock it down from $800 to $450 for the students. The best way probably is either just to reach me through Lampert, Toohey, and Rucci in town, or I'll give you my phone number usually. That's a good way to reach me. My direct dial there in the New Canaan office is 203 403-7734. That's 203-403-7734. And you can just reach out to us. We have a system in place where what we do is we send out just a very brief bullet point questionnaire, 7 or 8 questions. Who are you? Who are your children? Who are their appointees? Who they want to act in what capacity for each document. We get a draft going, we send that off to you just for a quick review, and then once that looks good, we get the child in to sign. They need to sign before 2 witnesses and a notary. So that's typically just done at the office. They'll come to see us then. Parents are invited if they want to come, it's fine. I think that is about it there. That's how our charges work. Anything else from anyone about anything? Is everyone, how many are settled, like with colleges now? Is it most people, would you say? I lost track of the timing. Most people are, okay, about half, okay. Yeah, so anyway, I think that's about it. Unless there's any other questions, I suppose we can wrap it up. Yeah, and good luck to everyone. Yes.
Section on your website, on your office's website, where we can find some of this information to just review on our own?
Not really. Our website's pretty basic. It just has like our little bios there and who we are. The firm here in New Canaan, again, I've been running the practice here. We started the practice maybe 15 years ago, T&E practice, Trust and Estates practice here. We have 2 offices. One is Main Street, 46 Main, and we have another satellite office on Locust, which is where we work out of. But no, there's really nothing on there that's going to give you any sort of summaries of what we're talking about here. But I think part of this is, I think a lot of parents just didn't understand when the child hits 18 that the certain rights are lost now, And again, just to repeat myself, if I had to pick, the most popular one, it's the bad night. Child had a bad night, now they're in the hospital. They drank too much, they ate something they shouldn't have. The issue that you see, I think, too, with a lot of the kids, so much of what they're encountering, the drugs are different than when we, were growing up. And a lot of it's edible, and the potency is, they're not sure. It's hard for them to, understand what exactly it is they're ingesting. And I remember one of my daughters was sick just with like the flu, and she was in the emergency room at one point there, and she said there was just a lot of kids that had a rough night that were in the emergency room, so it does happen. So that's like the one thing that I would, if I had to pick one, that I would say is, the most popular one. popular, but the one that results in these documents being used the most, I'd say. There you go.
Missed a week and a half to use the school.
Yeah, yeah.
The school was pretty involved with it and sent notes to the teacher, like they did everything. And
This was college?
This was in college.
Okay.
And then the teachers understood and helped her get her work done in different ways, because she couldn't, I guess when you have a concussion, you're not supposed to look at a computer or anything, and it was your finals or
Right.
coursework, so.
Right.
They worked with her, but, and sent out a note to everyone, so.
Yeah.
The school did that.
Yeah, like I said, they're usually pretty good. You know, they do care for the kids, and these, they take good care of the kids. Most of these colleges do, they really do. I think that probably will wrap us up then, I would suppose. Anything else?
Wait, Patty, did you have one? I just had a question about, this is mostly this presentation geared toward college, obviously, but
Yeah.
a lot of kids are turning 18 while they're still in high school, say like, I don't know, my
Yeah.
son, who's gonna turn in July, but he'll be a senior next year, so would you recommend doing these documents now before he be, like, for his senior year?
Yes.
Because technically I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's the same rule. Once they get 18, we have plenty of kids that come in and are still in high school, you know? And yeah, I would say the same rule would apply. Just get it done once they hit 18.
Oh, this is tape, is this tape?
Yes.
So when someone's saying they want to review that, it is, you can find it on the website.
On the VFA website, probably within the next couple of days, if you want to go back and listen again.
Yeah.
And like I said, last year's presentation, to hear what Greg Sloan's have been presenting in a little more detail today as well, to be able to access the videos.
I think that's it. I guess